Passive income. One of the strategies for an early and or satisfactory retirement is to estimate how much money you would need if you stop working. Maybe I should highlight this word, retirement. Okay. Based on your current expenses, project about how much income you will need to retire. And again, retiring doesn't mean like 62 or 66 or whatever, right? Retire means that you can cover all your expenses without having to work. That's what retirement means. So, as I mentioned earlier, in the case of Kobe Bryant retired at the age of 36. Right? But he retired with a net worth of something like $500 million. So I'm sure he had no problem paying his rent. Okay. Explain where that income will come from. Okay. So again, retirement does not, most Americans retire at age 62, okay, which is the earliest you can begin to withdraw your Social Security payments. And that leads me to believe that if most Americans are retiring at 62, that leads me to believe that a lot of Americans are not doing well and they need the money, because at age 62, they won't give you full retirement Social Security payments. They'll give you only partial. And if you wait till full retirement age, which today is 66 and a half, then you get the full retirement checks. So why would you retire 62 unless you need the money? Right? Unfortunately, so that's the way it goes. But you know, some people retire earlier because they do extremely well, like Kobe Bryant, for example, among others. Okay, so on the left side of the table, I wrote your expenses, including housing, food, utilities, transportation, health insurance, auto insurance, like that. Okay. I started with housing at the bottom because you need to, that's essential, right? You need to have a warm place to sleep. It's kind of hard to tell what's more basic, housing or food, you know? But, well, they're both very important. But some of my students have told me that housing is more important than food. And I kind of suspect that that's true. I mean, you need to have food, because you don't have food, you could potentially die. But in a rich country like the United States, food is available in many places, including food banks. And food stamps, or California Fresh, they call it. Okay. Those are your basic expenses. And then write down your actual expenses. What do you think you're going to need? Like, how much money do you think you need in retirement, right? And then, which might be, you know, your budget in retirement might be bigger or smaller than it is now, depending, right? Depending, because if you're making less money when you're retired, then you'll have to downsize your budget, downsize your lifestyle, right? But if you did well, your financial performance was very good, then your expenses in retirement might actually go up, right? Because retirement is, in a sense, about spending the fruits of your labor, right? Because nobody lives forever. So you might as well enjoy the fruits of your labor little by little, right? Spend down your net worth little by little, month by month, till the end of the road. Unless you want to leave a lot of money to your children or your grandchildren, or some bequeath your assets to some cause or organization. Many people do that. Some people do that. Some people do that. I went to the UCLA Business School, And when I was at the UCLA Business School, it was called the UCLA Graduate School of Management, GSM. But Mr. Anderson, who was a very successful real estate investor, Anderson's probably one of the greatest, most successful real estate investors in the history of California, among them, if not number one in California. He donated tons of money to UCLA, and so they renamed the UCLA Business School from the Graduate School of Management to the Anderson School of Management, or Anderson Graduate School of Management, named after him. But he donated millions of dollars to this business school. Okay, which means that, of course, his budget after retirement was substantially larger, I'm quite sure, than before he retired. Okay, so where is this money going to come from, right, to cover your expenses? Well, I put the list here. And again, I start from this table. You want to read from the bottom up, okay? So the first one is Social Security. Right now, the average Social Security payment in California is $17.45 a month. That's what the average California Social Security recipient is receiving month after month, year after year for the rest of their life. Well, they increase it every year a little bit to account for the cost of living increases. Okay, so that's one. Then individual retirement account, maybe a pension, 401k, mutual fund, annuity, index funds, exchange traded funds, and a rental. And these are all basically passive sources of income. Okay, Social Security, individual retirement account, pension, 401k, mutual funds, annuity, index funds, ETF, rental. Those are all basically passive. Of course, you have to create them. Okay, you have to, meaning you have to put money into your Social Security account. You have to create your own individual retirement account. The pension might be provided by your employer, but as mentioned earlier, pensions in the United States have almost disappeared. The people who have pensions in the United States today are public school teachers, policemen, firemen, city employees, county employees, state employees, federal employees, and some companies, but not many anymore. Okay, so that's a consideration. 401k, that can also be set up by your employer. Mutual funds, you have to create them. You have to set that up. Annuity, you have to set that up. Index funds, you have to set those up. ETF, you have to set up, and rental, right? So those are all passive source of income. That meaning that you don't actually have to work to get the money from these sources, right? I mean, you have to work early on to set up, but later on it brings an income stream into your household that is more or less passive. Okay. Now, if all these sources are not sufficient, okay, then you're either going to have to run a business, which is a lot of work, and or keep working, right, which can be quite stressful, as you know, fighting traffic and having problems at work and people causing you problems and all that. So that's the way it works, okay? But the idea here is for you to figure out what you're spending now, how much you think you're going to need to spend in retirement, right? So those are your projected expenses, and where that money is going to come from, right? So that let's say you only have Social Security, and you're the average Social Security recipient, and you're receiving $17.45 a month. Well, you know, as I do, that $17.45 a month is the budget of a student, right? So if that's all you have, and you're in California, $17.45 a month, you're destined to live a life like a student, and that's it, right? And if you're a young person, you're living a life of a student, that's normal, that's to be expected. But if you're in your 60s, 70s, 80s, you're supposed to be living your golden years, and you're living a life like a student. That, I think, kind of means you really didn't get anywhere. You didn't make any progress. You're 60 something or 70 something, and you're living like you were living when you were 20 years old. Okay, that means you didn't make any progress. I mean, you survived. That's very good. You're still alive. Hopefully you still have your health. There are a lot of good things to be said for that. But financially, you didn't make any progress. You're still living like you were when you were a kid. So that's not too good, in my view. And then where else will this money come from, right? Right. But this this part, where this other money will come from, is up to you. You have to do this, right? I think Bill Gates said that if you're poor, that's not your fault. But if you die poor, that's your fault. Okay, so that's true. My parents were immigrants from Mexico. We were kind of poor, and I hated it. I hated being poor. But now we're not poor anymore. We're probably in the top 10 or 5% of the country these days. My mother, my brother, my sister, myself. Right? We're probably the top 5-10% of the country. But because we worked at this, right? It didn't happen by magic. It wasn't like, boom, it went from poor to comfortable by magic. No, right? It doesn't happen like that. You work at this. You work at this. You work. You put money into your Social Security account. You create an IRA. You fund it. Fortunately, we have pensions. My mother, my brother, and I, my sister and I, we have pensions. My wife's employer provided 401k for her, like that. So you have to work at it. Right? You have to have a strategy and a plan, and you have to fund it month after month, year after year, decade after decade, so that at some point you feel like, I'm done. I'm done with this. I have enough money to live well or to my expectations without having to work or without having to run a business. Okay? That's important. That's very important, especially as you get older.